Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to come to the lesson to make sure I understand it, and then I'll do it later.
Yeah, that's a good idea. In fact, with all these assignments, it's best to wait until we have this lesson and then to start the assignment. Okay. I hope you're all drinking lots of water. It's important to keep hydrated. Hi, Ashley. Okay. I'm gonna see, should we invite some people? Oh, hello. Hi, Ashley. Hi, Janine. Janine, you've got to remember to do your attendance every day. Sometimes I have to mark you absent because I don't see you. Who else do we have? Mohammed. Mohammed, same for you. Got to keep doing your attendance every day. Okay. Hi, Mia. Mia, you don't have to be here if you don't want to, because we're just going to go over stuff that we did in class on Monday and Tuesday. But you can stay if you like. That's fine.
All right, thank you.
No problem. Simone, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good, thank you. So before we start, I think you get your report cards on Friday. I feel like it's Friday you get your report cards, and it will be on Pupil Path again. I think pretty much everyone here did very well, so that's good to know. There's only one more marking period, which is the one we're in now, and that will take us up to the end of May, so about 5 weeks. And then really in June, it's more a case of you guys doing any regents you need to do, and doing any work that you haven't done to make sure that your grade is as good as it can be. Okay, just write present in the chat. Hi, Andres, how are you? Hi, Raihan, how are you?
How are you?
What was that? I didn't hear that. I think that was hello, Mr. Wick. Hi, Marcus, how are you doing? And also, just before we start, I think I sent a message about a poetry Padlet. If you have a poem you've written, this would be for extra credit for this marking period. It's going to go on a English department Padlet website thing, and so your poem will appear there. And I think people vote on it. I'm not entirely sure what happens after that, but you would get extra credit in my class for doing it. So if you want to do that, do it today. Do it today. Maybe I will write the link in chat after the lesson. Okay. Who else are we missing? Bunch of people. All right, well, we're going to get started. And if people want to come, they can come. So just write present in the chat if you're here. And we're going to talk about satire. If you were in class on Monday and Tuesday, this is kind of similar stuff to what we did then. So this is not going to look very different for you. So satire, let me just close this window, hold on. All right, sorry about that. All right, so satire is basically it's basically a way of being funny, but with a purpose, right? So it's to criticize something, or to make fun, to ridicule something, or to reveal the truth about something, or this word subvert, which means to basically completely destroy the way we think about something, I guess is the way to put it, in order to make it seem funny or ridiculous, so that people can see the faults with something. Maybe it's a system, maybe it's a society, or just a person. Sometimes we just make satire about somebody or a group of people or a belief. Okay, so that's what satire is. It's not just telling a joke or being funny. It's doing that with a purpose in mind. Okay, so satire isn't real, okay? And sometimes it's hard to tell, and we're going to look at a couple of examples. But it's not real. It's just a way of making something seem ridiculous in order to laugh at it, all right? Make us laugh at it in some way. Okay, so I'm going to show you an example now. There's this headline here, right? And it's about this guy called Elon Musk, who's this inventor. Hold on, the slide's going to come up in a minute. All right, so Elon Musk is this guy who made like Tesla cars, and he's kind of like this crazy inventor guy, comes up with these crazy ideas. And if you saw this headline, right, brilliant innovator, Elon Musk has announced he is currently developing a lemon with legs that can sprint to hungry people all over the world. What I want you to write in the chat is if you think this is real. Oops. My bad. If you think this is real or is it satire? And then maybe we'll talk about how you would know the difference. So is this real or is this satire? You can just write real or satire. And then we'll talk about how we would know. All right, so I'm seeing everyone writing satire. Satire, yes. Halid, you wrote satire. Why do you think this is satire? Given what we said about satire.
I think this is satire because not a real lemon can't really walk. I really don't think that's possible. And based on what we said about satire, but that's how you say it, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah. What you call it? Oh yeah. I think this is just to be. I don't know. I think this is just to be funny. To be honest, I don't think it's real.
No, you're right, right? Lemons can't have legs. Even this lemon looks like it's got muscular legs, but lemons can't have legs. And also, maybe we would wonder what if lemons could actually feed hungry people, right? If you ate a lemon, I don't think it's going to make you less hungry, right? So this is a piece of satire really aimed at making fun of this guy in the picture here, Elon Musk, because he keeps coming up with these crazy ideas to solve world problems. So this is kind of like making fun of him, right? It's this crazy idea that lemons could cure or solve poverty. Okay. So that's really what satire is, right? It's making fun of things, but with a purpose, because it's to criticize or to ridicule someone, in this case, Elon Musk. Now, sometimes it's hard to tell what's satire and what's not satire. So if you look at these 4 pictures on the screen here, 2 of them are real and 2 of them are satire. What I want you to write in the chat is the letters you think are satire. So you see each one is labeled A, B, C, D. So write down the 2 letters that you think are satire. For example, A and B, or D, C and D, whatever. So you're just going to write down 2 labels you think are satire here, 2 letters, excuse me. Hi, Maurizio. So let's just take a minute. You're going to write down the 2 letters that you think are satire out of the A, B, C, and D. I'm seeing a lot of A and D. Sana A and D. It's A and D. Okay. Yes, A and D are the two pieces of satire here. Melissa, how did you work that out, or what did you base that on? Why do you
Just
think
by
A?
looking at
Yeah,
just by
sorry.
looking at the both A and D images, because a 14-year-old I don't think can make that project as their science project, and D because it looks like a fictional monster from something.
Yeah. So what's the problem with a 14-year-old kid building an atomic bomb? What's the problem with that? Or one of the problems with that?
It's not going to be allowed in a school.
Yeah, probably not allowed in the school because atomic bombs are kind of dangerous, also kind of difficult to make, and also kind of difficult if you're 14 years old, right? So that one's clearly satire.
Wait, would I be wrong if I said that like a 14-year-old brain is not like developed to like build that?
Well, Albert Einstein, when he was 14, probably could have made an atomic bomb because actually the procedure or the physics behind atomic bombs is easily available on the internet, right? It's just nuclear fission. And so the actual science behind atomic bombs is not very complicated. The problem is getting the materials to make an atomic bomb. And it's hard to get for a reason because if it was easy, then a lot of countries or people we wouldn't want to have these materials would get hold of it and would destroy the world, right? Because atomic bombs have the possibility of doing that. Atomic bomb uses something called uranium-235, specific isotope of uranium, which has a very short half-life, and it's very rare and very hard to get hold of, right? Only certain countries have it and are able to use it to make bombs. Okay, so it's very unlikely a 14-year-old girl would be able to make this for her science project. More from the point of view is that if you said to your science teacher, if you said to Ms. Kennedy or Mr. Saucedo, can I make an atomic bomb in class next week? They'd probably say, no, not so much. All right, so that's why that one is clearly satire. Now, if we look at C, you might think that's satire because it's kind of ridiculous, right? This iguana who's in protective custody, right? We don't think of animals being in protective custody. We almost think of humans after the owners swung at it. But this was actually a real headline. This actually happened. So sometimes it's a little hard to tell if that was satire or not. But D, clearly satire, right? This new COVID variant, right? We can't have a COVID variant that's going to be that huge, which is going to like swallow a manhole. That's clearly ridiculous, right? Okay, and B is actually an example of rhetoric, trying to sell us these cat feeders. These things actually exist, if anyone has a cat. Okay, so to make satire, we use these things called satirical devices. And we've looked at a couple of them before, things like hyperbole. And we're going to look at 6. These are not the only 6, but these are the 6 we're going to focus on. And really the way to work out which device is being used and how the satire is working is to think about when you look at something, a piece of satire, or you read it, what would you expect to happen, okay, in the real world, in the normal world? And then think about, well, what do you actually see? What is actually happening in this piece of satire? And then the difference between those two, what you'd expect and what actually happens or what you actually see, is where the satire is and the type of satirical device. Okay, so let's start with verbal irony. Verbal irony is where you say something, but you mean the opposite or something else. Okay, so we have this image here. This is an example of verbal irony. Why is this an example of verbal irony? you're going to write in the chat, why do you think this is an example of verbal irony, given what we know about it? Let's take 2 minutes. Yes, Mohammed, she's kind of being sarcastic. We're going to come on to that in a minute, right? We can interpret this as sarcastic. She's crying, right? Good. She's saying, great, I have to go to school and tomorrow. Ashley says, in reality, she's crying and upset about it, right? So, yes, she says, great, I have to go to school, but we can see from the picture that she means something else by this. She doesn't actually want to go to school, right? She said it's great about going to school when she means the opposite. Yeah, good way of explaining it, son. Thank you. Yeah. So that's what verbal irony is. You say something, but it's clear that you mean something else. All right. And I'm glad, Mohammed, you talked about sarcasm because that's our next example. So sarcasm is very similar to verbal irony. Okay. It's where you say something, but you mean something else. But sarcasm has a little bit added to it. Okay, it's where you want to insult someone or show you're annoyed. All right, now we could interpret this example as sarcasm. All right, great, I have to go to school. Sometimes it depends on the tone of voice that someone says something or the kind of language they use. So we could interpret this as an example of sarcasm. Right, if she had said, great, I have to go to school, right, she's obviously being sarcastic. So why is the example on this screen an example of sarcasm? Let's take a couple of minutes. So you're writing in the chat, why is this an example of sarcasm? I am sorry I didn't realize you were an expert on my life and how I should live it. Please continue while I take notes. Yes, Marcus, you put it very well, I think, right? It's because it means someone's annoyed that someone else is trying to tell them how to live their life, right? This person clearly doesn't mean what they say here, right? When they say, I didn't realize you're an expert on my life and how I should live it, that's not what they're trying to say, right? They're not trying to say that you're an expert on my life. They're trying to say the opposite of that. And it's to show that they're annoyed with someone trying to tell them basically how to be, right? And Melissa, yeah, thanks. It's making fun of a person who is speaking about someone's life when they don't know what they're going through, right? Yeah, sometimes we get that, right? If someone says something to us, tells us how we are, and you know we may reply to them in a sarcastic way. You don't know what my life is like, right? But you say it in such a way to show that you're annoyed or insulted. This is an example of sarcasm because the person doesn't mean, shows that they're annoyed. Good, right? Sometimes it's very hard to tell the difference between this one, and this one. Okay, sorry, this one and this one. It really comes down to, do you pick up that idea that someone's annoyed or insulted, right? And if they are, then that makes it more sarcasm than verbal irony. Situational irony. Okay, so we had verbal irony, we had sarcasm, which is a form of verbal irony, and then we have another type of irony, which is called situational irony. Okay, and this is where, rather than someone saying something and meaning the opposite, what happens is something, you expect something to happen, but actually something else happens. Okay, and we sometimes we say, oh, that's ironic. So if we looked at this sign, why would we say that this sign is ironic? Write in the chat. Yes, so it says, because it says perfection, but the sign is messed up. Yeah. Gerardo says, because they're perfect, everything, but the sign is messed up. Yeah. Saying perfection when it's not even perfect. Yeah, Ralph, that's a good way of putting it. Mohammed, you would expect the sign to be perfect, but it says perfection, instead it's broken, right? It's irony because the word perfection is not perfect. Exactly, right? We would expect a sign that says perfection to be, in somewhat good shape, to be perfect, right? And if that sign is broken, then that's ironic, okay? We expect one thing, but actually we get something else. Okay, so that's irony. We've actually looked at hyperbole before. And as you should know by now, hyperbole is where you exaggerate to make something bigger or better than it actually is. All right. Now this one's maybe a little bit more difficult. We have a picture here, and the headline says, "City recycling program requires residents to sort, sanitize, melt, reform, label, fill bottles before placing in bin." Why is that an example of hyperbole? Yeah, so Marcus writes, because they're telling people to do all these things in order to recycle. Yeah. Remember, when you're trying to work out the satirical vice, you got to think about, what would you expect to happen and what do we actually get happening in the piece of satire, right? So normally when you are, say you've got a bottle like my bottle here, right? And after I finish drinking this, how am I going to recycle this? What do I have to do in the ordinary world?
You throw it in the recycling bin.
Exactly, right? I'm just going to put this in my recycling bin. Okay. Now, in the piece of satire, what we have to do to recycle is, I've got to sort this, I've got to sanitize it, I've got to clean it, I've got to melt it down, I've got to reform it into another type of plastic, I've got to label it, and then I've got to fill bottles, and then I'm going to place it in the bin to recycle. Right? Now that's obviously
what the
what's that?
recycling factories do. It's basically what the recycling factories do.
Yes, exactly. I have to do what the recycling factories have to do. So this kind of piece of satire is kind of making fun of this city recycling program. I can't remember what city this was in. I think they tried to do this in New York, where they actually wanted residents not just to, put the bottles in the recycling bin, but they had to do a bunch of other things. All right, and it's making fun of these kind of programs because they're clearly not going to work because people are not going to do all this stuff, not going to do anything more than just put it in the recycling bin, right? So this is an exaggeration, right? It's exaggerating what you'd have to do to recycle, and that's why it's hyperbole. Angeli, it's hyperbole because telling us to recycle could help make the environment a better place. It's also telling us how we could recycle. So it's not really about telling us how it's going to make the environment a better place. It's really telling us that we've got to do like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things to recycle, when normally you would expect to have to do one thing, which is just to throw this in the recycling bin, right? So instead of having to just do one thing, in the satire version, you've got to do 6 things. So that's making something exaggerated, in this case, the recycling program, more exaggerated than it actually is. Okay. All right. Let's look at understatement. So we had hyperbole, which is making things bigger or more important. And then we have understatement, which is pretty much the opposite of that. It's where you make something less important or smaller than it actually is. All right. So we've got a picture here on the right-hand side of the screen, and we have this guy, and he's saying, "I'm sensing some tension between you." And we've got these 2 guys who are kind of trying to strangle each other. So why is that an example of understatement? Write in the chat. Arado says, because they're trying to fight each other, but the guy says, "I'm sensing some tension between you," when they're about to kill each other. Saita says, because they're acting like they're going to kill each other, and he's just saying that he thinks as if they don't get along. Yeah, right? This guy is saying, well, I'm sensing there's a little bit of tension between you guys. You don't seem to be getting along very well, right? When actually, they're actually trying to kill each other. So this piece of satire is making this situation seem less important than it actually is. Right? So when this person says some tension, what's actually happening is they're trying to strangle each other. So this is understating the issue at hand here. He's acting like he's not a big deal when they're about to kill each other. Exactly. Right? Good way of putting it. So that's understatement. There's a drill outside my window. Okay, parody. This one some people sometimes have a problem with. So I'm going to play this video. This is from South Park, and it's an episode called World of Warcraft. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with South Park, but it has all these cartoon characters. They're all friends with each other. And in this one, I want you to think about, what is this this clip making fun of? What group of people?
All right, major stone shield potions should be. Oh God, I'm gonna have diarrhea again. You can't go to the bathroom. You're stacking Sunder armor. It's okay. Mom, bathroom. What, hon? Bathroom. Bathroom. Oh, that's a big boy, isn't he? All right, Kenny, drink your elixir of the mongoose. I'm now going to use mocking blow.
So let's start by thinking about, what are the people in this episode, what are the kids doing here? What are they doing? What are they Yeah, what are they doing? Right, it's making fun of gamers. Yeah, these kids are all playing games, and it's satirizing gamers, right? Making fun of kids who spend all the time playing games, and they're so fixated on these video games, these whole worlds which are created in these video games, like Minecraft, Fortnite, right? That they don't have time to go to the bathroom, and their mother has to come and like almost bathe them, right? Or help them go to the toilet. Okay. It's basically saying they don't have a life. Yes, that's true. And they're so obsessed in their games, right? So um, this is an example of parody because it's imitating or copying. We could say an issue of example of hyperbole as well. It's kind of imitating what these gamers are like, right? It's kind of the other way we think about parody is caricature, right? You may have seen, like, if you go on the boardwalk in Coney Island, and people will make a drawing of you, right? They have those people on the boardwalk, and they make a drawing of you, and the drawing is like a caricature, it's like a parody of you. It looks a little bit like you, but it's exaggerated in certain ways, right? If you go on to TikTok or to YouTube, right, you'll see these videos where these people dress up so they look like a pop star, like Taylor Swift or someone, right? And they'll sing a song like a Taylor Swift song. Maybe they'll change the lyrics a little bit. That's a parody of Taylor Swift. Okay, so it's imitating or copying a style, right? So a style or a genre, which is when we think of like a type of something, right? Maybe a type of person or a type of literature or a type of product, right? Or maybe it's an imitation of a people or person. And here, this is an imitation or a copy of gamers, kids. Right? So this is what a parody is. You see a lot of parody. For example, I don't know if anybody watches Saturday Night Live, SNL. You see a lot of parody on that. So if you ever see something where someone looks similar to someone you know, like if it looks like a famous pop star, all right, and they're exaggerating it in some way, or they're dressed up in some way, then that's going to be parody. Okay, so, oops, I want to play that again. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of practice, a couple of examples before we finish. So we already looked at this headline, right? We already said it was parody. But what I want us to think about is which satirical device would this be an example of? Would it be verbal irony, where you say one thing but means something else? Would it be parody, where it's copying something? Or would it be hyperbole, where you're exaggerating to make something seem bigger than it is? So you're going to write in the chat either verbal irony, parody, or hyperbole. So I'm seeing a lot of hyperbole here. Hyperbole, as I used to call it. Ashley says it's hyperbole because they're not exaggerating with the drawing of a huge virus. Yes. So this is a good example of hyperbole, right? Because it's making this COVID variant seem like it's huge, right? We know in reality, these variants are tiny, tiny molecules, right? They're not this huge thing that could swallow someone whole, right? They're exaggerating. Yeah, good. All right, so this is an example in this headline of hyperbole. Very good. Let's look at another example. This is one we actually did in class. So if you were in class, you should know the answer to this. What is this one an example of? This one's maybe a little bit more difficult. Is this sarcasm, which is verbal irony, but where you try to insult or show you're annoyed? Is it situational irony, where you expect one thing to happen and something else happens? Or is it understatement, where you're trying to make something seem less important. This one is a little more difficult to work out, I think. All right, Saita saying situational irony, Nayeli situational irony, Ashley situational irony. Nayeli, why do you think this one is situational irony? You can either write it in the chat or you can just unmute yourself. Because it's not the type of mask they needed. Yes, very good, right? This is an example of situational irony, right? It says, Mr. President, about the masks you sent so far. Now, we would expect doctors that work in a COVID unit at a hospital to be wearing the kind of masks that you guys wear, right? The masks that cover your mouth, because COVID can get in through your nostrils or through your mouth, right? So we would expect in this situation these doctors to be wearing face masks, okay, covering like this. But in reality, what we get is that the president has sent them these masks that just cover their eyes, right? They're like funny masks, like superhero masks, like Batman masks, or that mask at the end on the right, which is for what you would need to go underwater, right? So these masks would not be any good for them working in this COVID unit at the hospital. Yeah, you're right, Melissa, right? So this is an example of situational irony. What we would expect is these doctors to have face masks. In reality, in the satire version, they've actually got masks covering their eyes, which doesn't help them at all. So this piece of satire is directed at the president, who sent them, really basically sent them masks or PPE that don't help them at all. Okay, good. So the assignment for this week, which was posted on Monday, is a quiz about these kinds of satirical devices and in satire in general. Attached to the assignment was a list which gives you the definitions of all those 6 satirical devices that we just went over. So read that first before you do the quiz. I think it's 12 questions. I think so. For example, this is question 5. Which satirical device is being used in the example? You would think to yourself, well, what do I see in the picture here? How is that different to what this kid is saying? I'm dying of boredom, right? And then you got to work out which satirical device is being used, right? What do you expect? What actually happens? And that should be able to help you work out the satire here, okay? Any questions on satire? All the questions are multiple choice, and they are due on Friday. And then next week we will start analyzing satire, thinking about who the satire is aimed at, thinking about what the satire is trying to say. Right, that's what we're going to focus on next week. Any more questions before we go? Yes, Harado, you can go to Saga. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. And we're just going to finish up here. Any questions? Everyone's good? All right, so have a good day, everybody. If you can get outside into this beautiful weather, you should go outside. And if you're in class, I will see you tomorrow. If not, I will see you on Friday when we'll have another quiz doing some more practice on these type of satirical devices. Thank you, everybody. Have a good afternoon.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks, Mia.
Bye.
See you tomorrow. Bye.
Have a good day.
Bye. See you
Bye. Bye, guys.
Friday.
Take care. See you Friday. Ralph, I'd like to see you tomorrow, but you know, in person still.
Bye. Have a good day.
Bye, Sana. Sana, are you still in person? San, are you there? San's gone. Bye, Angeli. I'll see you on Friday.
Bye.